Russian drones flood Ukrainian skies. August 12th, 2025. On the tense eastern front near Zaporizhzhia, Russia unleashed a strike it believed unstoppable. 180 drones, 120 T-90 tanks, 1,500 elite infantry. Their mission: to smash defenses, seize 3 cities, and claim victory before sunrise. Moscow called it certain, but the battlefield was not empty. Above, Ukrainian surveillance drones pulsed images every 8 seconds, mapping every move. Beneath the soil, spikes, bomb craters, and mines turned fields into hidden weapons. Along the ridgeline, Bodana howitzers waited, locked by GPS within 2 meters of their targets. And on the ground, Oplot tanks and motorcycle assault units idled in silence, preparing to strike back. What Russia saw as a corridor of conquest was, in truth, a trap carved with precision, a killing ground disguised as farmland. Will the spike traps prove their effectiveness? Will the Russian core be trapped? Will the Ukrainian counterattack plan work against the Russian external response formation? Let me explore the truth. On the night of August 12th, 2025, the frontier of eastern Ukraine did not fall silent. It stirred with shadows. Small Russian teams, 2 to 5 men each, slipped across farms, riverbeds, and tree lines. Their mission was sabotage, cut wires, unsettle defenses, and strike from behind once the main force advanced. They were the first whisper of the storm. The roar came at 6:40 a.m. From 3 directions: Zaporizhzhia, Pokrovsk, Novopavlivka. Russia unleashed 180 drones in a single coordinated wave. Some carried optics, streaming trench lines and bunkers to command screens in real time. The rest carried explosives, programmed for surgical dives. The impact was merciless. Apartment blocks shattered, grain silos burned, hospitals collapsed. A suicide drone tore through a residential street, leaving a crater where families once lived. In Zaporizhzhia, one drone slammed into a bus of evacuees, killing 23 civilians in seconds. By the third wave, Ukraine had counted over 200 civilian casualties, most elderly, many children. For Moscow, it was the softening blow. For Ukraine, it was a nightmare. Yet one already met with a hidden answer, an answer that would turn the next phase of Russia's assault into chaos. By 7:10 a.m., the thunder of engines swallowed the echoes of the drone strikes. What began as shadows in the night now erupted into steel and fire. From 3 separate axes, Russia committed its armored fist. 120 T-90 main battle tanks, each weighing over 45 tons, advanced in columns so dense the ground itself shook. Behind them, 150 trucks carried 1,500 elite infantry, the lifeblood of Moscow's offensive. Their cannons spoke without restraint. Bridges shattered, schools collapsed. Crowded markets were ripped apart by high-explosive shells. In Pokrovsk, a single barrage erased an entire block of homes, burying dozens of civilians beneath rubble in less than a minute. The scale was merciless. Russian commanders believed resistance had already been broken. Drone swarms had blinded trench lines and silenced bunkers. Confidence turned to recklessness. In one chilling order, a battalion commander authorized tanks to fire on any building taller than 2 stories, convinced they concealed enemy observers. Streets became fire corridors. Villages turned into infernos. By the time the 3rd Armored Column reached the outskirts of Novopavlivka, civilian casualties exceeded 320, neighborhoods burning unchecked. Analysts would later estimate that in just 40 minutes, Russia poured the equivalent of $500 million in armor, manpower, and munitions into the Ukrainian front. To the Kremlin, it was the hammer blow meant to collapse defenses before breakfast. A decisive thrust designed to fracture the east and deliver headlines of victory. Yet beneath farmland and village roads, a different story had already been written. What Moscow believed unstoppable was not an advance, but a march into a killing ground. In truth, the armored spearhead was rolling headlong into a carefully laid death trap, waiting for this very moment. Before the Russian army enters the death trap, let me know you are watching from the world. Stand with us, support this mission, and subscribe for more. Now the veil lifts. Let's see how the trap truly works. As the Russian columns thundered deeper into Ukrainian territory, confidence turned into overextension. Tanks rolled across farmland and village roads that looked untouched, but the land itself had been weaponized. For weeks, Ukraine's 93rd Mechanized Brigade labored by night, carving a death zone into the countryside. At 7:23 a.m., the first Russian T-90 crested a shallow ridge west of Zaporizhzhia. The ground gave way. The 45-ton beast plunged nearly 20 feet into a hidden pit lined with anti-tank mines. The detonation tore through its hull, hurling the turret 35 feet skyward before it crashed back in flames. Within seconds, the armored spearhead faltered. It was no isolated trap. Across 3 miles of farmland, dozens of pits lay waiting, some laced with explosives, others lined with steel spikes engineered to shred treads and cripple crews. Between them, narrower shafts bristled with sharpened stakes. Russian infantry leaping from burning trucks fell straight into man-traps, their screams drowned by smoke and thunder. In the first 6 minutes, 11 tanks were destroyed or immobilized without a single Ukrainian shot. Chaos swept the columns. Radio nets flooded with conflicting orders. Some units demanded retreat, others insisted on pressing forward. But escape routes were illusions. The safe lanes had been deliberately left open, guiding Russian armor into pre-sighted kill zones. And then, as confusion peaked, the second layer stirred. Concealed positions came alive. Ukrainian armor emerged from camouflage, Oplot tanks sliding forward, cannons leveled with cold precision. Along the ridgeline, Bodana howitzers locked targets within 2 meters, waiting for the order. The trap was no longer hidden. It was awake, primed for the decisive blow. Don't leave yet. The battlefield was not finished, it was only shifting. By 7:05 a.m., the once proud Russian spearhead was no longer a formation, but wreckage. Columns shattered, engines burned, infantry scattered, clutching rifles, searching for orders that never came. What had been a storm of steel was now a graveyard of broken machines and terrified men. That was the moment Ukraine struck back. From concealed staging grounds, hundreds of motorcycle units roared into the open. These were not civilian bikes, but purpose-built combat machines. Lightweight frames reinforced with armor plates, thermal scopes bolted to handlebars, mounts for machine guns and grenade launchers. They were cavalry for the 21st century, swift, lethal, unstoppable. At over 70 miles per hour, they surged across farmland, weaving between burning tanks and smoke plumes. Russian infantry, who thought they had found escape routes, suddenly faced engines screaming toward them. Grenades hurled into ditches. Suppressive fire raked across hedgerows. Soldiers crouching for cover were cut down before they could raise their weapons. Panic metastasized. Ukraine had not forgotten the infiltration squads either. Before dawn, Russia had inserted dozens of small units to strike from behind. But with the offensive collapsing, their mission became suicide. Reconnaissance drones orbited above, mapping every heat signature. Mortars, guided by precision coordinates, fell with merciless accuracy. In Nova Pavlivka alone, 11 infiltration teams were erased within 20 minutes. Barns reduced to craters, rifles splintered to ash. By 7:20, the battlefield had transformed into a killing ground with no exit. Survivors clustered around damaged vehicles, only to find Oplot tanks bearing down, cannons leveled. Some tried to surrender, waving makeshift white flags, but Bodana batteries had already locked the escape routes, cutting off any organized retreat with steel and fire. 40 minutes of relentless counterattack yielded staggering results. Nearly 70 armored vehicles destroyed or immobilized. Over 600 Russian troops neutralized, killed, wounded, or captured. Motorcycle detachments alone accounted for more than 150 prisoners hunted down in open fields. The infiltration squads, once envisioned as Russia's clever dagger, had become easy targets under skies saturated with Ukrainian drones. As Ukrainian commanders relayed orders over encrypted channels, the message was stark and simple. The enemy is broken. Press forward. The counterstrike was not just pursuit, it was annihilation. A modern cavalry sweeping the field clean, crushing the illusion of Moscow's unstoppable force. And still, the morning had not yet reached its deadliest hour. By 7:45 a.m., the battlefield was no longer a fight, it was a graveyard. What Russia had launched as a bold strike of 180 drones, 120 tanks, and 1,500 elite infantry had collapsed in less than 90 minutes. Satellite imagery captured the aftermath in chilling detail. A corridor of destruction stretching nearly 3.4 miles, farmland gouged with more than 200 craters, each marking where steel and men had been swallowed. Silent villages now burned. Roads once alive with convoys were littered with twisted wreckage. The losses were staggering. Of the 120 tanks that thundered into Ukraine, 42 were reduced to smoking husks, their turrets flung into fields. 23 more sat crippled and abandoned. Crews fled or dead inside. Of 150 military trucks, more than 80 were destroyed. Many incinerated with their human cargo still trapped in flame. Casualty estimates painted the true cost. In just 85 minutes, Russia suffered over 1,050 losses, 610 killed, 290 wounded, 150 captured. An entire regiment's combat strength erased faster than a single football match. The infiltration squads fared no better. 37 teams slipped into Ukraine under cover of night. By dawn, 31 were annihilated. The remaining 6 were scattered, captured, or fled in panic. Not a single mission succeeded. For Moscow, the timing was catastrophic. Vladimir Putin had counted on a clean victory, a triumph to showcase before his scheduled meeting with Donald Trump. Instead, he faced headlines declaring the worst single-day battlefield defeat since the war began. Intelligence confirmed 3 Russian generals were placed under immediate investigation. One was reportedly arrested while attempting to flee Moscow in the early hours after the collapse. And yet, amid the steel and statistics, one image pierced global consciousness. Near Novopavlivka, a Ukrainian soldier was photographed offering a flask of water to a barely conscious Russian conscript. His face was scorched black, his body trembling. He was 19 years old. The photo spread across networks within hours, reminding the world that behind 610 dead, 290 wounded, 150 captured, were lives abruptly consumed. NATO analysts called it a doctrinal earthquake, the blending of old world traps, pits, spikes, camouflage, with 21st century tools, drones, satellite feeds, precision artillery, was unlike anything in modern warfare. This was not raw firepower. It was foresight, patience, engineering, and coordination. Ukraine had spent less than $20 million in mines, drones, and shells to dismantle a Russian strike force valued at more than $750 million. The message was clear. Brute force without vision is chaos in steel. Strategy, ingenuity, and resolve had overturned Moscow's armored avalanche. By 8 a.m., silence fell on the Eastern Front. Over 1,000 lives, 200 vehicles, 3 cities spared, all in the span of less than 90 minutes. Real power is not in the weapons you unleash, but in the wisdom, courage, and humanity of those who stand to defend. The Battle of August 12, 2025, will be remembered not for its length, but for its clarity. In just 85 minutes, Russia's grand offensive, 180 drones, 120 tanks, 1,500 elite troops, collapsed into silence. What Moscow envisioned as a lightning conquest became the single most devastating ambush of the war. Ukraine's defenders, outnumbered and outgunned on paper, rewrote the battlefield. Farmland became fortresses, roads became death traps, patience became a weapon sharper than any missile. They proved that foresight, preparation, and resolve could overturn brute force. The numbers spoke with brutal precision. More than 1,000 Russian casualties, over 80 destroyed trucks, 42 tanks reduced to burning husks, 31 infiltration squads wiped out in minutes, a force worth $750 million undone by less than 20 million in traps, drones, and shells. But beyond the arithmetic of war lay something deeper. Brute strength without vision is nothing but chaos wrapped in steel. Strategy, ingenuity, and discipline transformed weakness into advantage. And even amidst devastation, one image endured. The Ukrainian soldier offering water to a wounded 19-year-old Russian. Proof that even in the fire of war, humanity survives. This was more than a battle. It was a message. To Russia, to NATO, to the watching world. Overwhelming numbers are not invincible. True power lies in patience, precision, and the courage to stand firm. If you found this story powerful, please support the channel with a like and subscription. It helps us bring you more history and analysis that matter.